Hi, welcome again to this regular meeting of the Madera County Transportation Commission Policy Board. We are live through the Zoom, so if you'd like to visit us, please visit our site. We also can call in at 1-669-900-6833. We now will call this meeting to order. So Sam, can you please take roll?
Chair Rodriguez,
Here.
Vice Chair Poitras,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed.
Here.
Commissioner McCauley absent, Commissioner Rogers,
Here.
Commissioner Zachariah.
Here.
We have a
Awesome.
quorum.
Thank you, Sam. I'll ask all to please rise as we pledge allegiance. I'll ask Commissioner Zachariah to lead us on the pledge.
Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. First of all, let me say welcome. See some new faces here. Thank you for joining us today. I'll start off with our public comment. This time is made available for comment from the public on matters within the board's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Attention is called to the fact that the board is prohibited by law from taking any substantive action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda. And no adverse conclusion should be drawn if the board does not respond to public comment at this time. It is requested that no comments be made during this period on items that are on today's agenda. Members of the public may comment on any item that is on today's agenda when the item is called and should notify the chairperson of their desire to address the board when the agenda item is called. At this time, I'll open public comment to the public. Do we have any written communications? Anyone online?
No one has their hand raised, and you've not received any written communication for the public comment section.
All right, thank you, Troy. With that, we'll go ahead and close public comment. And we'll bring this down to item 4, MCTC sitting as the Transportation Policy Committee. These are consent items. All items of the consent agenda are considered routine and non-controversial by MCTC staff and will be approved by one motion if no member of the committee or the public wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered in the listed sequence with an opportunity for the members of the public to address the committee concerning the item before action is taken. At this time, I'll ask my fellow commissioners if there's any items that would like to be discussed separately. If not, I'll ask to see if any members of the public. All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Rogers. Second from Commissioner Ahmed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on to item 5, transportation action discussion items. Item 5A, public hearing on the unmet transit needs. Natalia?
Waited here.
Okay. Before we get started, I'd like to have our interpreter to explain how to access the Spanish channel on Zoom, just in case there are some Spanish speakers online.
Muy buenas tardes a todos y bienvenidos. Si ustedes gustan acceder al canal de interpretación simultánea al español, en un momentito van a ver el icono que aparecerá en su pantalla del globo terráqueo. Van a pulsar allí y van a elegir Interpretation y luego van a elegir Spanish o español y así van a tener oportunidad de escuchar todo lo que se diga en la reunión simultáneamente al español. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. And before we begin the public hearing, I want to take a few moments to just briefly discuss the purpose of this hearing. the opportunities that have been made available for public participation in addressing unmet transit needs. And then finally, we'll also explain how individuals can participate in today's hearing. So in order to understand the purpose of this public hearing, we have to trace back to where the unmet transit needs process began. And that was with the Transportation Development Act. The Transportation Development Act was enacted in 1971, and it was to provide funding to achieve two main objectives. The first was to improve public transit, and the second was to encourage collaboration on regional transit issues. So the TDA, as you can see there, provides two funding sources. One of them is the Local Transportation Fund, which is derived from 1/4 cent of the general sales tax collected statewide, and also the State Transit Assistance Fund, which comes from the statewide sales tax on diesel fuel. So MCTC's responsibility as a regional transportation planning agency is to disperse those funds to the transit agencies and also to conduct this unmet transit needs process. So in line with the intent of the funding, then the transit agencies will use those funds to improve their transit systems. But because Madera County has a population of under 500,000, we could also use these funds for non-transit purposes, such as for street and road maintenance. So a key component of the Transportation Development Act is public participation. Regional planning agencies like MCTC were required to establish a Social Services Transportation Advisory Council to discuss transportation needs and also to hear the needs of transit-dependent persons. The council is made up of all different types of folks, transit riders, persons with disabilities, social service representatives, older adults, also representatives from the local transit agencies. One of the main functions of the SSTAC, though, is to evaluate public transit requests to determine if they are unmet transit needs and also if they are reasonable to meet. So annually, the council will make a recommendation to this board, the MCTC Policy Board, regarding unmet transit needs. After all the reasonable needs have been met through the expansion of existing transit services or the creation of new transit services, MCTC can release the remaining TDA funds for non-transit uses, like for street and road maintenance, like I mentioned before. So establishing an SSTAC and inviting the public to comment on transit needs is a mandatory process, and it's a condition to receiving and using TDA funds. The law requires that annually there be at least one public hearing to receive public input, and that's why we're here today. Even though the law requires only one public hearing, we go beyond that. We try to make it easy for residents to submit comments in the way that's convenient for them. So we'll accept comments by phone, mail, email. We have comment forms. We also have an online survey. We'll take comments through that way. During the month of March and April, we also hosted several workshops throughout the county to give residents opportunities to learn about the unmet transit needs process and also to get assistance in filling out comment forms. We try to make sure that we spread it out and go to different locations every year. So this year we had in-person workshops at the communities of Lavinia, Fairmead, the Madera Ranchos, and also in Oakford. We also had a virtual workshop as well for those who would rather listen online. So we see there a timeline for the unmet transit needs process for this year. So we started the unmet transit needs process for this year. We kicked it off in February. And then in March and in April is when we had those public workshops. And then as you can see where the arrows are pointing, here we are today at the public hearing. On April 29th is when the SSTAC will review all the comments that we've received. And we'll make a recommendation to this board, the MCTC Policy Board, if any unmet transit needs were identified and if they are reasonable to meet. But this policy board is the one that makes the final decision on unmet transit needs, and that will be at the May Policy Board meeting on May 21st. All of that is then compiled into a report, and we document that with the state. So then after that, then the transit agency will start to find a solution for any unmet transit needs that were identified as reasonable to meet. So if there's anyone here that's today to participate in the public hearing, we do look forward to hearing the comments. When it's your turn to speak, please introduce yourself, state your name or city or community of residence for the record. You have about 3 minutes to speak, but try to give as much detail as possible. That way, the more specifics that you can share about your service needs, like from where you want to go or how often, the easier it is for the SSTAC and also the MCTC Policy Board to understand and evaluate the need that you're addressing. If you're online, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom to be recognized to speak. And then if you're participating by phone only, then please press *9 and then you'll be recognized to speak. So with that, I'll turn the meeting back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Natalia. Appreciate you giving us that brief overview and the presentations that were done at these communities at this time. This is a public hearing, so we will open the public hearing portion of it now. Public comment, anyone from the public wishing to make a comment on this item? Do we have any written communications or any people online?
We did have some written communication that was provided to you from the Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. And so we have a printed copy of that, and we'll also forward it to the SSPAC.
Thank you. And each of our commissioners here has a copy of that. I will again ask if there's any people online or audio. Go ahead.
No hands are raised at the moment.
Okay. I will close the public comment on that and bring this back to our commission for any questions or comments they'd like to make. If none, I will make a comment. I know that this is an annual public hearing that we hold, and typically it's areas such as Lavina and or Fairmead, and areas maybe in Oakhurst that have issues with the unmet transit needs. And I think you've done a pretty good job of explaining what the SSTAC determines to be the unmet transit need, of course, being very cost effective, ridership and what have you. Part of some of the comments that were made earlier with some of the written notifications were that somehow that doesn't quite meet additional hours and what have you. So in talking with these groups, are we getting feedback from them as far as how we can better serve them, especially with transportation needs?
Yes, particularly in Lavinia this time, they were very specific about the time of day that they would need if they needed some extra service or some more frequency to the route that they already use. They did, our transit agency representative, our transit manager was there, Monique Cox, as well as the general manager for MCC was also in attendance, and they were able to answer, any questions that the community had there at that workshop. So we will also present, as staff, we try to make sure that the SSTAC has enough information to make a reasonable decision. Data such as ridership, stats, cost to maybe expand service, anything that they would need to address the specific comments. We ask the transit agencies to provide that kind of data for them so that they can actually make a clear decision based on facts, a data-driven decision to address these needs and determine whether or not it does meet the criteria of being reasonable to meet. So in the past, maybe something may have not been determined as reasonable to meet, but this year may be different. And so we do trust that the SSTAC will be able to make a good recommendation based on the data that they have.
Thank you, Natalia. And I do know that this body does have to be very thorough in the way we request the hearings and especially presentations that we do at these areas because of the funding. Obviously, this will come back for a second hearing, and then it will go to the appropriate agencies to let them know that these are some of the unmet transit needs. Is that correct?
Not another hearing. The SS TAC will review all the recommendations, all the information that Natalia presented, including the data. They'll go through it. They have to meet once, it might meet twice, depending on what they can resolve, and have a presentation for you at your May 21st meeting for approval.
And at that moment, if there's any unmet transit needs with any of the agencies, they too will know, such as the city of Chowchilla, and the county, correct? So it's a very open, transparent, and at the same time, very thorough process so that we can get all those that are looking for in transportation that we have. I mean, I hate to say we can't meet every single need, but the unmet transit need defined by this agency certainly is something that we're trying to reach to every single time. So thank you again, Natalia. This is a public hearing. If there's no other comments, then we'll move on. Any other comments from my colleague? All right, moving forward. Thank you very much, Natalia. We'll now move on to item 5B, San Joaquin Valley Regional Policy Conference recap. I'll let our Director Taylor.
Yes, in April 19th through April 9th through the 11th, MCAG in Merced, they held the San Joaquin or hosted the San Joaquin Valley Regional Policy Conference. It was well done, well thought out, well attended, and there was an opportunity for discussions ranging from housing to transit to transportation to rail. And so usually when we attend a conference, I like to follow it up with a recap to provide you additional information from those who attended, and Supervisor Poitras and Chair Rodriguez and staff attended the conference. And so we just wanted to allow you some time to provide some information and feedback related to your experience there at the policy conference.
Thank you, Director Taylor. I'll bring it back here to my colleagues to see if they have anything they'd like to add.
Yes, I would say that, first of all, our executive director was honored with an annual award given to a public sector individual who's made significant contributions to regional transportation planning. And that winner, of course, was Tricia Taylor. And so I think a round of applause is in order. I think that, we don't really realize sometimes, the expertise and what value our team brings and what we have here, in our own backyard. So thank you very much. And then also, Trish participated in the multimodal delivery, or it's basically at the end. And so, what does that look like, from our perspective? We had different people there, and different people have different opinions and in terms of what that looks like. But Tricia was able to give the perspective from the local agency viewpoint. So it's a lot. It's very aspirational, and just like unmet transit needs, quote unquote. There's only so much you can do, but I believe that probably some interesting ideas were developed from that. So, and it's always good to attend the conferences, to meet with other commissioners and to hear from them. Also, other staff and relationship building with people from the CTC and Caltrans as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Poitras. Would anyone else want to comment? If not, I'll just echo what Commissioner Poitras said regarding our executive director. Well-deserved. It seems like every conference that we go to, she's being recognized for a lot of her leadership. In this case, obviously that was the public sector. Thank you for everything that you've done, this Transportation Commission. The venue, great venue. Obviously we start off at the UC Merced. I got to, meet the chancellor and have some of our local representatives there also speak on behalf of transportation. Just Merced really did a good job of hosting that venue and really showcasing a lot of the stuff that they're doing and this is kind of to Commissioner Poitras's point, is really getting to these conferences. You get to network and get to see what they're doing and how we can bring that here to Madera. But we formed great relationships. This Regional Policy Council is it's a coalition of 8 counties. And obviously, we all work together with trying to advocate for similar needs, whether it's air quality, transportation, water, and housing needs, of course, now. But it was a great venue. Again, congratulations again. The city was also awarded the blueprint for their specific plan of Village D, which was a great thing. So it was good to see that. Great venue. Look forward to doing this again. And if any of my colleagues would like to participate, that's a great council and or conference to attend. So that being said, I'm not sure if there's any other comments. We'll move on to item 6. MCTC sitting as the Madera County Transportation Commission, reaffirm all actions taken while sitting as a Transportation Policy Committee. At this time,
So moved.
all right. So we do it. All right. So we have a motion from Commissioner Poitras, second from Commissioner Rogers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hey, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 7, administrative consent items also for the MCTC seated as Madera County Transportation Commission. Do we have any members from the public wishing to pull any of these items? Any of our members here? All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Rogers. Second from Commissioner Poitras. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? A motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 8, administrative action discussion items. Item 8A, fiscal year 25-26 overall work program and line item budget. Director Taylor.
At our meeting that we held in February, we presented the draft overall work program for the upcoming fiscal year 2025-2026. We went through each item in detail and discussed what our tasks are for next year, what's carrying over for next year, and went over the budget. But our normal process in February is we review the draft and then we circulate it for review by our partnering agencies. So Caltrans, FHWA, FTA, they all have an opportunity to review our upcoming budgets and tasks, work elements, and provide feedback. We received feedback from Caltrans, and staff reviewed each comment, and where we felt that we could make the necessary changes, we did. Some of them are just wording, or we might not have included a fund source or some changes to certain elements to stress in other areas. There wasn't anything really of huge significance, so we did incorporate the changes. It's before you today for approval, and then once we approve it today, we will circulate it and send it out to Caltrans, FHWA, and FTA for the final document.
Thank you, Executive Director Taylor. Do we have any colleague here wishing to make a comment? Question? If not, I'll open it up to public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to make a comment? Online, Zoom, audio? Okay.
No comments and no hand raised.
That seems like that's a good meeting, right? All right. Moving along, item 8A, we're going to go ahead and bring it back for action.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Poitras,
Second.
second from Commissioner Rogers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, moving on to item 9, MCTC sitting as the Madera County 2006 Transportation Authority. These are your consent items. Any member from this body wishing to pull them? Member of the public? Bring it back for motion.
Move for approval.
Second again.
Yeah, we have a motion from Commissioner Poitras, second from Commissioner Rogers. Seems like this is kind of repeated, but it's great. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to item 10, authority action discussion items. We have none. We're going to fly through this meeting pretty quick, and I had so much to say.
Yeah.
All right. Item 11, miscellaneous items from staff.
I would like to draw your attention to item 4E, which is a open house meeting that will be scheduled on April 30th for the Madera High Speed Rail Station. And it will be an opportunity to hear a presentation on the project status, but it's for the environmental impact report for the Madera High Speed Rail Station Full Build Project Phase 3. And it'll be from 5:30 to 7:30 with the presentation kicking off about 5:50 to about 6:10. And so just wanted to just bring your attention to that, alert you to that. And the other item Caltrans will probably bring up, but it has been announced that Director Tavares will be retiring. And so they'll be looking for a new Caltrans director, unless they already have one in mind, but I don't think so. But he will retire, and I think it's mid-May, but.
I think I heard May 7th.
Okay.
So it's soon.
Yeah.
It's on a Wednesday.
Oh my goodness. Okay, it's a Wednesday. And that's all I have.
All right, and again, this is for April 30th at 4 p.m. Is that the event?
April 30th. Oh, no, that's a different meeting that we will have at 4 p.m. But this open house is from 5:30 to 7:30. We will have just a staffing pre-meeting afterwards.
Thank you, Director Taylor. Any other items from staff? All right, so then we'll move on to items from Caltrans. Before we do, I do apologize. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself, but your name, sir?
Oh, Jim Peralt. Yeah, thank you.
Jim Pearl, thank you again. You're going to be representing Caltrans, so I'll shoot it over to you.
I am, thank you. Yeah, and so I am here and just we talked about Director Tavares, who's the director of Caltrans. He'll be retiring soon. We just I think everyone's aware at the district level, we have a new district director as well, Michael Navarro, that you all know well from being here at the meeting. Just recently, Shane Gunn was appointed to be the acting planning director. So he typically would be at these meetings. The MCTC meeting and Kings County meeting are scheduled at the same time. And so he asked me to come and represent him today. So just wanted to make you aware that he says hi and I'm sure you'll see him in the future if you haven't had an opportunity to meet him, but he'll be acting in that position for about 6 to 12 months. And then, which is kind of typical at the Caltrans process. And then we'll hold interviews for a permanent replacement. So in the interim. So those are some staffing updates. I wanted to just publicly, last month we got a call from Federal Highways that there were some funds within our district that were potentially at risk. It was the Madera project, Madera 41 project, expressway project here, $25 million of rural grant that had been received, and there was another project down in Kern County. They ended up on a couple lists with some questions being asked about when those funds were going to be obligated. The direction from Federal Highways was we should try to accelerate those projects and get the funds captured and obligated as quick as we could. So kudos to Madera County, Dominic and his team. They were able to work with us and Federal Highways to get that accelerated, and we were able to capture those funds. So big team huge effort. It was huge, and it was honestly I got the call. It was one of those calls. It was a Tuesday morning. I was leaving town to go to my son's wedding. It's one of those calls you don't want to get, emergency situation. And so I asked staff to manage that, and we met immediately with the Madera County team, and it was huge. So kudos to everyone for that. It's great for the region. I also want to just go through just some status updates on some of the projects within the Madera region. One thing I want to mention, there's sustainable transportation planning grants. That's a cycle that we go through every year. Applications were received earlier in the year with an expectation that the successful applicants will be announced mid to late summer. I believe that MCTC has had an application into that process. I just want to update on that we should hear some news later
in the summer. We already talked a little bit about the comprehensive multimodal corridor plan for Highway 99 that was presented at the San Joaquin Regional Policy Conference, and it's on schedule to have the draft report by the end of this month, and then a study will be completed the end of June of 2025. South Madera 6-lane project, just the status on that. It was the right-of-way was supposed to be certified in January. We've had some additional work that needs to be done, and so that date has been backed up for a right-of-way cert to October 1st of this year. The North Madera 6-lane project, both of these on the 99. We're targeting the end of our environmental document for April of 2028, and then to go out, to put a contract out to bid in November of 2030. So those dates are quite a ways out. The Madera Downtown Cap M project, pavement preservation project. We anticipate we're going through the right-of-way process right now and certifying the utility relocation work, and that's estimated to happen in June of 2025. PG&E's their critical path on that, and then there's an expectation that we could begin construction early in 2026. Let's see, the State Route 99 233 interchange improvements. We're going through a constructability review on that of 60% plans. That'll happen by June, and then we're looking at that being ready to advertise for construction next summer. The Cottonwood Creek Bridge replacement project. I believe we just opened the northbound off-ramp to Avenue 12, and construction's anticipated to be completed on that project, depending on weather and any other delays this summer in June. An update on the Ranchos rehab project. They're currently working on a punch list item. The construction substantially complete, and it should be open if it's not already by the end of the month, which is just next week. The Chowchilla Cap M, again, pavement preservation project. Design and right-of-way phases are underway, and it should be ready to advertise for construction in November of 2026. And then lastly, I know Supervisor McCauley had a couple items that he was interested in at our last meeting. I know he's not available to be here today, so we've given him an update on those questions that he had via email, and he was satisfied with that. I think he had a few more questions, but I think he's up in Sacramento this week, and so he was going to get back to us about that. So that's my update, unless anyone has any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. At this time, I'll ask you members of this body if there's any questions.
I just have a question. Well, just a couple of small questions. You mentioned that the right-of-way cert for 99 South would be completed by October. And then what does that mean? What happens after that?
What happens after that? Good question. So the way the project development process works is, first you got to get your funding, and then you start the environmental process where you clear that. Once you clear environmental, then you can move on to design and the right-of-way process, and then you finish up your design process, and then you're ready to, assuming that you have your funding, you're ready to go out to construction. So you have a project that's complete.
Okay, so I haven't answered my question. It's like, okay, I know all that already. What happens after that? When can we expect construction? Because that's really, what we want.
Yeah, and that's a good question. And honestly, I'm not familiar enough with the project that I can give you an answer. So I can get that and get back to you.
I'm just looking for consistency because we've heard summer of 26, but if you knew something else, then I wanted to hear that. So, it's kind of taken a while to get, the right of way and that sort of thing.
Yeah, my understanding with the right of way is it's, you're having to go through that process. I think the condemnation process. I mean, that
Right.
takes some time. And so,
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so that's what my question was, like so you don't know, that's fine, I get it. Second thing is, I keep getting emails on this multimodal thing, wanting me to fill out a survey, and I filled out several. I just received one at 11 o'clock this morning. And so we're supposed to get this draft thing by the end of the month, but they keep asking for people's opinion, and we just had a report, at our San Joaquin Regional Policy Council thing. So is this thing really going to be, or are they still looking for more input? Or, because if I answered that, what's today, the 23rd, and it's supposed to be done by the end of the month, are they really going to be able to get my comments in by the time the draft?
yeah, and I guess and again, I'm not working closely on that project, but I do know that outreach and public engagement are they're a very important part of the process. And so I think there's just been a lot of effort to send that out and try. I know we've held several workshops where we've invited folks. I know we've sent out surveys. And so, yeah, I think if you had additional comments, I think that those comments would be.
Nothing's changed from my first two.
Okay. And so
Yeah, those.
And it was like a year ago or something,
It's it's a public process, and so public engagement is highly valued, and so there's a lot of outreach that's done to try to get those comments.
Let's say that's the case on this one. The leadership group can't come back and say there was no outreach.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any other comments from my colleagues? Okay, well,
I
again,
got
Yes.
a question.
Commissioner Rogers.
When does the process for mowing and what have you begin? Because some of the weeds are getting like 4 feet high out there on 99.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, I assume it begins in the spring, and I know there's a lot there's just a ton of miles to do,
Yeah.
right? And and it involves, it used to be you used to be able to spray out there and control weeds, and you didn't have to mow. And then when you do get out there and mow, you've got to do lane closures, and you got to do safety access. So I can check in with our maintenance guys
Yeah.
and see and let you know.
Yeah, at some point it gets a little hazardous.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Turn into fires and that kind of thing. So.
Absolutely. Understood.
Thank you again, Mr. Perel. Very good questions from our commissioners here. One that stood out definitely was Commissioner Puig, is that when you have a right of way, we know that takes time, but time is money. So when projects take longer, obviously with the cost of inflation and all, I mean, obviously these projects can amount to a lot more than what they started with. So good questions on both ends. Thank you again. You did leave us in suspense, though. Did you make your son's wedding?
I did make my son's wedding. Yeah, so thank you.
See, that's the admin
Top priority.
And that was my third of 3 sons. So yeah,
Awesome.
Yeah.
it was wonderful.
Can't leave him.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Burrell, for updating us on Caltrans. We'll now move on to items from commissioners. And at this time, I'll open it up for any of my commissioners that may have some items they want to comment on.
I have no comment.
This group is too quiet today. All right, well, moving on. I have nothing to say, so we'll go on to item 12. This is a closed session. Before we go into closed session, I will read the items and then I'll have an opportunity for public to make any comments if they do. We'll convene the closed session for items 12A, which is public employee performance evaluation pursuant to government code section 54957 B1, position executive director. Item 12B will report any closed session actions pursuant to government code section 54957 and 54957.7. Any required reports of closed session action will be made at this time. At this time, I'll ask if there's any members of the public wishing to make any comments. If not, then this portion of our meeting is, yes.
I have a question. So the director made a comment about an open house on April 30th for the high-speed rail. Is that open to the public?
Yes.
Where is that located?
Yeah, I'll give you a copy.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I haven't received any information about that yet.
Okay, so our public meeting is now going to end and we'll reconvene back once we're done with closed session. Thank you again for your attendance. Nice to see you all.
You're good to go.
All right, thank you. Again, we'll reconvene to our regular meeting. This body did come back and have a reportable action item. We did provide a satisfactory evaluation or non-satisfactory for our executive director. That being said, that'll conclude this meeting. I will now look for a motion to adjourn.
We move.
All right.